Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and this morning I'm looking at a very important book called Arbitration World. It comes to us from Sweden MAXWELL, Thomson Reuters, who are styled as the Answer Company now, which is quite interesting. The book is actually in the 6th edition. There are two general editors, Karyl, Nairn, Queen's Counsel, and Jonathon, Egerton-Peters, and they come from a firm, Skadden, Arps, Slate, Meagher and Flom, UK LLP. Elizabeth was the lead writer on this review, and we've given in the title of our review the following: International Commercial Disputes, is arbitration the answer? This new edition of Arbitration World rushes headlong into the debate, and at a very interesting time. Let's have a look at the book. It's a heavy one, and it's, as I say, it's a hardback. There's the front, there's the spine, and then there's an awful lot on the back, covering all the various jurisdictions about arbitration law across the globe. That's the front anyway. The back of the book, let's go to the back first of all. This has a list of contact details of all of the companies listed. And in fact very useful. And then what you've got is information by company. There's no actual index as such at the back. The front, there is the front page there, and as you can see right on the front it does actually call itself the Answer Company. I'll just show you that there for Thomson Reuters, which is interesting because I hadn't come across that name before. There is the detail. The book was first published in 2004. Then there's a foreword by the authors, which is quite useful, in October 2018. Then you've got the table of contents, and it's set out very clearly, basically looking at, it starts with a foreword, then it gives you a global overview, and then looks at various countries of where arbitration is important. As I said, there's no index at the back, but there are contact details of the various organisations. Then you've got a global overview, an introduction to international commercial arbitration, and you can see the structure. You've got paragraph numbering, and you've got footnoting. There's not a huge amount, but the paragraph numbering is quite important, but it's slightly different because it's numbered this side. Sometimes it's on the other side, but it's actually there, this side. On as you're looking at it, it's actually on the left side, but to me it's my right side. And there again, running all the way through, you've got the various countries. You can see them mentioned. The book is in total runs to something about 1,250 odd pages. It's an important book, I think, because what is happening at the moment with arbitration are very substantial changes in the post-Brexit era, if that happens, which it should. I imagine it will do eventually. But in the meantime, obviously there are various centres where arbitration is the way of dispute resolution, and therefore this book, I think, has a prime purpose in the 21st century to give you as much information about where your disputes may be settled or resolved, depending on which part of the world you're in. Anyway, what do we say about the book? To arbitrate or not to arbitrate? This is a question that quite often emerges from commercial disputes, especially those involving international implications, and one which an open-minded perusal of this book might well be able to answer. A simple query might arise concerning whether or not a dispute might be resolved by the court system in a timely and economical manner. Well, we all hope so, but of course, and we've got it enshrined in the procedure rules, but whether that actually happens in practice sometimes is debatable. While there is no final, unequivocal answer, this book, in our view, does provide useful guidance and certainly informed commentary on the value of and increasing popularity of international arbitration, and the advantages, possibly disadvantages, depending on point of view, of resolving a dispute by arbitration are extensively discussed in this latest edition of Arbitration World, the 6th edition to be precise, from Sweden MAXWELL Thomson Reuters, and is published as part of their highly successful international series. And since the previous edition, which came in 2015, arbitration as a dispute resolution mechanism has continued to grow, as the editors reveal. And if reasonably plausible and perhaps convincing proof were needed, this new edition is the longest and the largest to date, providing, as it does, a global overview of 17 of the world's leading arbitration institutions set in 38 jurisdictions. So it's a fairly substantial task that the editors have. New material based on new research is contained in 8 new chapters featuring the arbitration laws of Algeria, Argentina, Brazil, Georgia, Hungary, Kenya and Sudan, and also the rules of the Mumbai Centre for International Arbitration. And recent trends, as the editors point out, include changes in the law and practice of arbitration via such indicators as increased diversity and an increase in support for arbitration on the part of local courts. And clearly this is another method of trying to resolve disputes, and you can see the sense to it, because quite often you do not want to have the very, very formal processes. But a word of warning, please. However much we talk about the formality of courts, I have found sometimes that these other organisations, other forums, such as tribunals certainly, and to a certain extent arbitration, can be equally formal and equally, of course, nerve-wracking. But it's important, going back to the book, to note in particular the first chapter contributed by the team from Freshfields Bruckhaus Derringer LLP, which kicks off with the self-explanatory title of Global Overview. It's immediately after the foreword. It's an introduction to commercial arbitration, and it's a very useful summary, we think, of the current state of arbitration processes worldwide. A quick glance at the list of the book's almost 60 chapters reveals the amazingly wide-ranging scope of the arbitration matter therein. Examples such as the London Court of International Arbitration, the North American Free Trade Agreement, that's NAFTA, and the Singapore International Arbitration Centre. And then, of course, you've got UN-CITRAL, as I call it, arbitration rules, and, of course, much more. I know some people call it the UN-CITRAL, but UN-CITRAL is the easiest way to explain it. Now, for a number of reasons ranging from the perceived advantages of simpler procedures to the allure of saving time and money, it appears in the opinion of many observers that arbitration is the preferred mechanism for resolving international commercial disputes, as evidenced by the caseloads of the major international arbitration institutions. It's a fact of life in the 21st century, putting it bluntly. Recent trends are examined in convincing detail in the many individual chapters that deal with specific jurisdictions. And speaking of which, the book provides a very handy directory of contact details for every jurisdiction discussed, and that's at the end of the book. Let me conclude by saying it can't be too surprising then that this impressive volume of well over 1,200 pages is widely regarded as the go-to reference guide to arbitration jurisdictions, to rules and to institutions across the globe, and that is something the editors stress quite strongly. And of course, arbitrators, general counsel, and certainly most or all international lawyers will find it invaluable, if not indispensable, as a source of current thinking and commentary on international arbitration. I think we're very lucky to have this book because it's a great aid to your particular professional activities. And the publication date of the sixth edition is cited as at October 2018. It depends very much on which date it actually states on some of the websites, because they do tend to change. Let's just have one last look at the book. Here it is here. There's the front of it again, there's the spine, and then there's the back. It's a heavy book, and as I say, it's part of their international series of which is what they mention it in the foreword. It's not actually mentioned, funny enough, in the front of the book, but it says it's the highly successful international series, but a little bit of a plug for Sweet and Maxwell there. Just opening the book in the middle, let's just go to Brazil. Here we go. This is the third chapter in, and you can see structure of it, the paragraph numbering, the emboldening, so it tells you what the actual specific bits are about, then it looks at the applicable law and so forth. It's, generally speaking, I think a very useful hands-on book, as we said before. It's the go-to book. But there we go, you get a very good feel for it and all the countries involved. I have to say I was a bit surprised at a number of countries involved, but there we go, that's just the way it is. There we go. Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody concerned for this book. It's a first-class new edition. Thank you to all, and all the best for the future. Bye-bye.